Welcome to the Masculine Revolution, hosted by Jeremy Brown and myself, Murphy G. This is episode number 45. Jeremy, you kind of want to bring us into the topic this morning?
Yeah, man. So you and I had some conversations. Well, it's pretty much an ongoing conversation. It seems as if it's that way
Yeah.
for me. But three parts of the human existence, right? Mental, physical, spiritual. And our conversations always kind of lead to like, hey, what are strategies / tactics on balancing those three things in a healthy way? So I figured we could chat about kind of some personal experiences with that, wins and failures, and see where we go.
Yeah.
So like kick it off with kind of give me some of your thoughts, like in the last, let's just say, we don't have to go crazy, but like last 2 years, what's the largest differences you think in making adjustments and evolving those three aspects of life more in line with what you value?
Yeah.
What's that look like?
I think it's just finding you got to find yourself, and I think once you figure out who that is and where you want to go, so I guess setting goals, because all three of those play into whether or not you feel like you have a healthy balance, and all that could also depend on your goals, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you have these huge expectations on life, or maybe even like super hard on yourself about I should be further along or this, that, and the other, then I think that'll wind up affecting all three. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think finding contentment with where you're at, and not in like a, like you don't reach for nothing else, but like, content with where you're at in your story. I think then you can find all those three will come together to help you move forward.
What's that process look like for you last couple of years?
Process of discovery?
Yeah.
Whew. A lot
like,
of,
where do you start? How
Yeah.
would you encourage somebody, like, as you kind of hear this conversation, like, all right, I hear you, those three things, I agree that's part of the human existence.
Yeah.
As far as finding a balance, like, what's the first step, or what has it been for you? Like, I'm not saying it from the perspective of like this is the only way, but
Yeah.
what's your experience been with it?
I think probably number one would be just trying stuff. So, just following through with putting action to an idea, I guess, outside of like you can say, hey, I really want to do this or that or whatever. Like for myself, like going head on in music for like 6 years of just nonstop, like recording every day and making sure, and kind of just went down that avenue, and it was just kind of once you start trying stuff, then you start to figure out maybe this ain't exactly what I thought it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we see something and then we romanticize about what that looks like, or what that actually looks like, Like everybody wants to be the boss until you're in that position with all that stress, right? Then it's like, oh, well, I didn't realize this part came with also being able to call the shots, is also the stress that comes with when things fall apart. And so I think for me, like going after music, I had a certain idea in my mind of how that would work, and I think I was working to get to a certain point of wanting to discover what that was. I wanted to be a signed artist, and I went down that path, and things don't actually go the way that I thought it would. And it's not like in that situation anybody necessarily let me down. It's just not what I thought it was going to be. And it was just such a small experience, so my experience ain't going to be the same as what everybody else does. but my brush with that, it just didn't go. You know, I wanted to make music, and nowadays you kind of have to be like a social influencer plus make music, and I kind of enjoy just making music and not like that whole thing of being in front. And so, like I said, I went down that path and I gave it to where I was comfortable at, and then I find out that maybe I'm not meant to be that kind of an artist, you know?
Yeah.
And so I still enjoy writing music. It's just once I just kind of put my foot in the water and I realized what everything that comes along with that life, and I don't know if I was necessarily cut out for that. So that would be the one thing, you know, for sure. I started recording in 2011, and then, you know, so really the past 6 years was probably the most momentum I've ever had with it. And then, like I said, you know, I kind of got to see what it felt like. But
Yeah.
so that would be, I think, a success and a failure in the same experience for sure.
So just trying something that would be outside the box, you know,
Yeah.
that and you got expectations for it, but opening up your mind to looking at it from a different perspective and saying, okay, well, it's not what I thought it would be,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay. How do you cross that bridge, like with a from like a mental example, like let's say sharpening your edge on your mentals, like studying or reading different kind of books, like what's been your experience with that as you've started that process of recognizing that, like, hey, gaining perspective is important.
Yeah.
And how do you gain perspective? Well, you open your mind up to other people's experiences and thoughts, right? So reading is a great avenue, but you don't necessarily have to read. You can do audiobooks, podcasts,
Right.
you know. So how has that process been for you as far as the evolution of it in the last 2 years?
Yeah. So you saying like my search of knowledge?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, shoot, I'm always like a sponge when it comes to that stuff. I mean, I'll listen to. From a young age, I realized that like you can't really idolize the people, right? You can take information and realize that somebody might be giving up good information, but the source isn't always the greatest. So I'm always trying to find good information, and I try not to put too much in the person behind it, because, I mean, just like there's so many artists, right? It's like they're terrible people, but their music is incredible. And so it's like it kind of goes along with that same thing in my mind of like, you know, just there's preachers that preach incredible messages, right, and then wind up to be not so great people behind. So it's like you just take the message for what it is and not too much in the messenger. But yeah, I mean, podcasts are huge for me. I love open discussions and stuff like that, and obviously some books. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have like a particular regiment or rhythm?
No.
Just at random?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the most like random consistent people ever, because I feel like if you were to take a big 10,000-foot view, it's a consistent line in the same direction. But on a day-to-day thing, like I'm not very disciplined with like, all right, today I'm gonna give 30 minutes to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like however my day works out. You know, whether it be in a car ride home or if I'm on a tractor and I'm listening, I have an opportunity, then I do it like that. But it's just kind of like however it gets in. But those are the things that interest me, so I find a way to make it happen for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think my personal experience is been, you know, pretty cool for me to watch. Where like growing up, you know, reading was not a part of my life, and in fact, I kind of like completely rebelled against reading altogether. It was like I don't really want to read, you know, because it's boring.
Yeah.
You know, up until like 18, 19 years old. I think it was like 19 when I actually read a full book from actual beginning to end.
Yeah.
You know, like not like I skimmed through stuff with school that was like required readings or whatever, but actually like with an intent of digesting what it's got.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it's probably like 19.
Yeah.
And then it really like after that, it was that one specific book that was that interested me, and then I would try, but nothing really, but then as I realized that it's important, there's an importance to keeping your perspective sharp and having an open mind and having the ability to be influenced, not in a negative way. I mean, it's got to be checked, against my values. So if it's indifferent to my values, it's not like oh, I don't read it, but like the level of influence is determined based on that. But still, I think it's still good to hear other thoughts. And so then, like, crossing that bridge for me has been like recognizing the importance of it and the value in it. And honestly, like, I'll go through rhythms where like I'll read hardcore, a couple books in a row, and then I'll like kind of have a gap, and then pick it back up, or whatever. Or maybe it's a mixture of audiobooks in there or a podcast or whatever, something like that. So, I would agree with you. Like, my personal experience has been, it's not necessarily like I don't have a goal like, okay, I got to read 20 minutes a day, it's more in the lines of reading is important, or listening to podcasts is important, or listening to audiobooks is important. And usually when I start a book, I'll finish it, like I try not to take a gap in that, but like, but I give myself some space in between reading and consuming. Outside of, for me, the Bible is something that is a daily discipline of reading and thinking about what I'm reading. But it's outside of that, like with books and stuff, it's more scattered, but still routine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think that what I do notice is when I am, like, if I start a book and I'm in it and I'm reading it, like, I feel like I see a difference in my conversations outside of whatever the topic may be in the book. Like, my conversations, because it's fresh on my mind, like, I'll try to bounce what I'm reading off of other people in my life, which I feel like has been super beneficial, which is also really cool about, like, studying the Bible, right? Because then you're processing whatever it may be, and it's just fresh on your mind. And so then I bounce the thoughts off of other people, and then you get, sometimes feedback that, like, that's a really good point or a really good idea, and I apply it in my own life. Or it's just, you just hear an opinion or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, I understand you better now, as a person. So it's as far as interacting with others, I think that as I have become more conscious of, hey, this is an important piece of life that needs to be consistent in my life, it's not only helping my perspective and broadening my view, but also it's there's a ripple or a chain reaction to that, where I'm typically beginning to have conversations about whatever I'm reading with others. Mm-hmm. So not only am I getting the perspective of the author, but I'm also getting the perspective from other people about the topic that I'm reading about while I'm reading it, and so I think it's an immediate like tactic that you're doing with reading books and stuff that ripples out into the rest of your life if you're doing it on a consistent basis. Yeah. And I think that's what's beneficial for me, majorly beneficial as far as sharpening that edge in my mind, is it opens up the door not only for myself to broaden my perspective, but also have conversations about it with others.
Yeah.
Have you seen that to be true? Like, as you're studying or you're reading something, even if it's not necessarily like, every single day, like, does it pop up in conversations about the topics that you're listening to?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the internet's a place where you can just get lost in just like watching a bunch of useless stuff, but it's also an incredible tool. And so, for myself, I always think about it as like, if you're looking for a red car, you're always going to find one. And so I'm looking to hear wisdom and how to navigate things, whether it be relationships, finances, business, all that stuff. And so it's like those are the things that I'm drawn to, and then obviously those are the things that I feel like are useful. And so yeah, I mean, anytime I come across stuff, I try to test it out, and see what people think. Probably more so with the things of the Bible and my faith, just because I mean the Bible's is so interesting because it's like a mirror and a window all at the same time. You know? And so for me, it's like when I read things, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm reading it right, or that I have a good understanding of it, and so that. For me with the Bible, it's like I do that, but even with my study with that, because it's so heavy for me, it's like I have to do like an inhale, exhale kind of thing with it, because it's like I'll get to the point where I'm asking so many questions that I'm not really allowing it to actually affect me. It's just like, well, you say that, well, all right, well, what about this then? Then I just start chasing, rabbit trails, and so I try to make sure that there's a time of seeking, and then there's a time of sitting and letting it hit me. And anytime I have a struggle with that, I'm always gonna have conversations about it, or even things that I see that aren't lining up.
So. Recognizing that inhale, exhale, I like that way that you described that. Like recognizing that was a need. How recently or how long ago did that you connect the dots with that?
Like 6 months.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago.
So what does the practice of that look like?
Of inhale, exhale?
Yeah. For you?
Yeah, it's just I try to calm my mind, and I try to honestly, it looks a lot like not doing it anymore, but that's not what it is, because I'm still participating and going like that. But it's just more of just like sitting with something for a while, like whether it be like a topic like, relationships or anything like that, or just questions about God. Like I used to I would want to have that conversation all the time, everywhere, with whoever would listen or whoever would give me an answer. And I think it just winds up creating anxiety in my mind, because I'm always, everything's not going to be, as far as the Bible goes in our faith, there's no shortcut to the path that God has for you. So it's like in time, all these things will start to make sense, and you might hear these stories and you're like, this doesn't really quite line up. How does a God of love allow this to happen, or whatever? And you sit with these questions, and you start to, and then, like I said, it created anxiety in me if I wanted to just keep just hitting on these trails and confronting every little thing. And so now I'll read something, and then I just kind of sit on it, or I'll listen to a message and I sit with it, and I really just try to marinate on it and allow things to be revealed, because I think sometimes I can get in my own way by asking too many questions and connecting dots that maybe don't need to be connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that process just happen? Have you just allowed that process to happen where it's all just in your mind, or are you jotting anything down, or is it just different every time depending on whatever you're thinking through?
Yeah, I think it's just different every time. I think, prayer is a huge part of that. So, like when I say I like some things, can really give me anxiety and like I struggle with, like, some of that stuff's a big deal. Some of them it matters. And so I know that through Scripture, not to lean on my own understanding. And so sometimes when I start asking questions, even though I'm asking questions, I might not be asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I say I in times of where I'm like, there's tension there, I just need to sit and allow God to show the things. And I'm looking for it everywhere. You know, I was having a conversation with my dad not too long ago, and I'm saying, like, God is in everything. You know, like, I hear him in everything, not just a praise and worship song. I hear him in a rap song. I hear him in a country song. I see it in a TV show. There'll be an underlying message through the show or whatever, and it's like I remember, just as a stupid little sidetrack, but like I was watching an episode of Suits, right? And there was something that happened in that episode, and I remember just an overwhelming feeling of gratefulness for the family that I have. And it was like just watching that situation play out, you know what I mean? And it was like in that moment, it's like that's a lesson that I just got from that they didn't intend to teach me. But when you're looking and you're open to it, you can see it in everything, you know. And so that's kind of where I go with things, is I look to see what I'm looking, you know, what I'm searching for.
What in you do you think has contributed to allowing your mind to go there, like with the episode of Suits? You know, because I think, like, I wouldn't say most people, that seems aggressive, but like I don't know how to phrase it, but a high percentage of folks, you know, would watch a TV show, and if you see you, like you're saying, if what's the saying? It's like if you see what is it? If you see the things, I can't remember it, so I'm botching it. But it's like if it's like if in essence, if you see like what you're saying, the principles. If you see the principles and you recognize the principles, then you see them in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what has allowed you or helped you or assisted you or pushed you toward to what that way of thinking, to where you're open to seeing those things?
Yeah. I think that question right there is kind of let's see. I guess just my faith, man, just really actually seeking God and wanting to understand, you know, we're supposed to love other people. And so I want to understand people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to understand culture. I want to understand how people think. And so with that, if I believe that God created everything, and this is the way my mind works, is I get on phrases, and then it's like this big, you know, huge thing for me. So if God created everything, then, you know, our minds conceive like good and evil, you know, and really that's all subjective as well to what your experiences are. And really, if you think about it, when bad things happen, usually there's something you grow through that, right? So it's like, what's really, you know, circumstances can be quote unquote bad, but really, if you know, time just keeps marching on.
Yep.
And it's really just your perception of things. And so for me, it's like I want to be compassionate. I want to be understanding towards people. And so I just try to understand culture and not be offended. And so in my mind, God's not offended by us. So, you know, I don't think, and I think he wants a relationship with us. And so with that comes understanding. And so that's where I've kind of landed on things. It's just like, there's not a line I've drawn in the sand with like, I'm over here, so and so's over there. I just, you know, we're all on a journey, you know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of been made me step back and see the world from a bigger point of view, I guess. And through that's what's kind of led me to see God in everything.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably the number one thing that as far as why I'm inspired to dig in and study and read and listen and pursue other perspectives, or at least hear them, is for that exact same thing, where I've realized how important it is to learn the rhythms of human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one, because I am one of them. So I mean,
Right.
if I can learn what the typical reactions to certain situations are and how we naturally react to them, then there's an understanding, and so expectations, like real expectations, as far as what you're going to experience with with another human being, as far as relational, they're not too high. Not to say that from a negative perspective, but I mean, it's just saying, you know, if you begin to kind of understand how we work and how we're wired, then you have the ability to have more compassion. You have the ability to have more patience and kindness and, you know, goodness and all those qualities that we're seeking to have. You have the opportunity to embrace them more because you understand the struggle and the you know, successes, you know, of human existence. And I think that's where that's what reading and listening to podcasts and just listening to other perspectives helps you understand.
Yeah.
As you begin to learn that. You know, it's like right now in this culture that we're experiencing, you know, you get a lot of people saying that, like, you know, like what we're seeing and the behaviors that we're seeing with people and the choices that are making, like, are something new. But then if you take some time and actually study history, like, we're pretty, like, predictable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there's random stuff that happens that are, you know, but for the most part, our behavior is pretty the same thing, like, as throughout history.
Yeah.
You know, and so that should teach us, like, hey, this is kind of where we're at with being human. You know.
Yeah, I think you hit something with the expectation piece, which is what I was talking about earlier about trying stuff. Right? Is whether it be relationships with people or how a certain field of work is going to be, we have expectations, and sometimes there's romanticized expectations. So you inflate what you think. And we do this with people too, right? I thought you were going to do this. I thought you would ask this. I thought you would, and it's like, well, I mean, that was in your mind. You set that thing up, right? And so, like, with me, like with the music, I had a idea in my mind, which was a romanticization of how that would look, right? And how that path would go, what would be required. And that wasn't based in real, I had no experience in that, right? And so we do the same thing with people, and we say we're not good at relationships or we don't have anything, but then we talk about, you know, the thing is we don't understand people because we're not doing it yet. You know what I'm saying? And so that's been my whole that whole ideology I've been trying to wrap my head around. Stop having these huge expectations that aren't based in dang, I can't think of it.
Just reality,
or just like you've never done that before. So that's what I'm trying to say. But it's gonna plague my mind right now. But yeah, like you haven't had based in experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd never been assigned artist before. So how could I possibly call what it takes to get there,
right?
Or what that actually is going to entail? I had no experience with that. I watched interviews. I was a student of, like, listening to folks and hearing, and then, you know, growing up, you see how artists are and you try to mimic what that looks like and stuff. But I had no real experience to base what I would think that would take, you know. It's just like anything, you know, it takes work, and we always romanticize the good things that have come from it, but not what we'll have to give to get that. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing with people. We romanticize and expect them that, like, they're gonna react in a certain way if I do this or whatever, and it's like it's not based in reality, you know. And that sets me up to really wind up having like blocks in the relationship, because then you've let me down off of something that I created in my head. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I've been trying to go, is just I just want to, if I'm going to draw to a conclusion, I want it to be from experience and not from what I expect or what I thought it would be. So that's been a huge thing, is shifting from recognizing hey, sometimes I make things bigger in my head. I expect more out of people, and they didn't give me any indication that they were going to do that. That's just what I thought, you know. And so I've been trying to live more in that kind of, you know, thing, that kind of mindset of just, you know, hey, don't let your mind run wild just because you can draw a dot. Don't necessarily mean it's there. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
I think that's helped big time, with the mental thing as far as like going after stuff, and then, you know, the trifecta, I guess.
Yeah. So how does that transfer, that same concept of behavior and thought processes? How does that transfer over into a spiritual side of your life?
Into the spiritual side of my life, man, I think it's just being patient and waiting, you know.
Yeah.
Being patient is the biggest part of that too, because like I said, same thing. You know, we create these plans in our head and we say, God, this is how it's going to work, right? And you, please, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And instead of saying, what do you have for me? And you know what I'm saying, I'll just take it day by day instead of, you know, looking for a guarantee of where I'm going to be. And I saw, you know, matter of fact, I seen a video, I think it was last night, that was talking about, you know, God's will for your life is not a job title or a career path. Cause like the guy was a singer, and they were like, oh, aren't you glad that was God's will for your life? And he was like, it's not. Because he said, if I get in a car wreck and I can't play an instrument tomorrow, like, does that mean God's will is done for my life? You know?
Right.
And so it's just kind of a big thing for me, because I was like, dang.
Yeah, we are the ones who attach our identity
Yeah,
to
dude.
like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
an entertainer.
Yeah.
I work construction. We're the ones who sign those,
Yeah.
you know. And we also think, I think on a spiritual side, like on conversations that I have in my own mind and that I've had with others, is like, I just want to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And or I want to do what God wants me to do. You know, you hear those phrases, you know, like I just want to be within God's will, you know. And the more that I have experienced, I think that obviously you can be living outside of God's values,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like 100%. But as far as like what you're choosing to do, as long as your values align with His values or align with your faith, you know, if that's your choice of what you're buying into, then it's like it doesn't really matter what you choose to do as long as those values are being executed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say that's, you know, as long as you're living in your purpose, it really doesn't matter how you're doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's the conclusion I've come to, is like, if I'm living in my purpose and I feel like I'm doing the things, you know, that are on my heart, on like that I feel like God tells me to do. If I'm doing that, then it doesn't really matter where I'm at, bro. It don't matter where I'm at or what I'm doing. It's like if I'm seeking after that and I'm living in that, and I'm like, you know, being obedient, and I recognize those opportunities to live in the things that pull on my heart, I think He's not really concerned about the other things, you know.
Yep.
And we like to assign that to that of, you know. And I think it's, you know, people get paid for ministry, and so people are like, well, I want to do that too. I need to take care of my family, and I want to, you know, so ideally that's the thing, you know. But yeah, I think that's been the hardest part for me, is just to realize that, you know, I don't know everything. I can make good attempts and assumptions, but at the end of the day, it's like, unless I go and actually put my foot in the water, then I don't really know. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been a thing of coming to terms with not knowing as much as you think you know. You know what I'm saying? You can be like, because I mean, trust me, I still feel like I'm a pretty smart guy, but it's like there's a lot of times where you can get humbled. You know what I'm saying? And then you have to take a step back, and to me that was the lesson. That was the lesson, was just, you know, hey, take it day by day. You can't, because like I said, all that stuff, you know, the questions, and you start to read the Bible and you're like, what are you telling me? You know what I'm saying? And so it just all goes in together. It's just being patient. And like I said, you got to go see things. You know, one of the things I hate the most is people that are like, oh, that ain't going to work before they even try it, before they even make an attempt to try it, you know? And it's just like, well, yeah, it'll definitely never work if you never try it, you know? And so there's been that thing of just being available, ready to answer the call, and then at the same time, allowing God to steer the ship. You know?
Yeah, I think patience is a massive characteristic that's so important.
Yeah,
On the spiritual side,
for sure.
On all of it. I mean, mental and physical. Like, I think that characteristic fits in hardcore more than we would want it to or desire it to. Because sometimes I think like the expectation, the natural process of you thinking through something, no matter how hard you try, there will be some expectations associated with it. And majority of the time it involves others, right? And so then if you're not careful about recognizing that patience is important, then you begin to get frustrated because of how other people actions are affecting you, like personally, you know? And you're like, I want this to change, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, have you taken a step back to think, hey, maybe this particular experience with these particular people in these particular circumstances is being used as a tool for you to learn and understand more about others and life.
Yeah.
You know, and looking at it, like looking at those circumstances that everyone experiences as an opportunity to like get a spiritual and mental workout in, you know, and it be not comfortable, you know, and do it within the context of having an open mind and trying to like push down the desire to put expectations out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, because you look at anything like that you read in Scripture, like where people are experiencing things that they don't want to experience, and they're questioning like God, take this or move this, or why can't this happen? You know, and then God's answer is patience. You know, but on the back side of that, it's beneficial. Like, it's more beneficial, and there's more positive results of going through the experience that is indifferent to the expectations that you have, but experiencing it and coming out on the backside, you get more out of that than you do when you experience a circumstance that goes in line with your expectations.
Yeah.
At least that's been my experience. When circumstances play out and they are in line with my expectation, my natural reaction is just sit there and be like, yep, that's what I thought. You know what I mean? And then what type of mind frame does that put me in? Does that put me in a humble posture? Does that put me in a posture of learning? Nope. Usually it doesn't. Usually it's just like the experience passes and it's you just move on to the next. Where that if patience is required and you have to put some work in to consciously make a decision on, I'm going to inhale and exhale throughout this process and embrace it. All of a sudden, on the back side of that, after it's passed and concluded, if you take the time to analyze it, you look at it and you're like, well, it didn't happen as I would have hoped, but I think I'm better and stronger because of it, because I learned, it humbled me, and I'm more open to different options.
Yeah.
You know? That experience also shifts, for me, it shifts the thought process typically away from me. Whereas if I'm focused on my expectations, it's my expectations.
Right.
And so if it's not going as I had hoped, I'm focusing on how it's making me feel or whatever. And so there's this, here I am at the center of this experience, this mindset. And then I'm outside of that with the other.
Yeah.
And I think it's more beneficial to be outside of it, but that's a challenging thing to do on a consistent basis with all circumstances in life, but I think as soon as you start making a conscious effort to do it on a mental and a spiritual side, you experience the benefit from stepping outside of the selfishness, and you're like, okay, I want more of this. But then certain areas of my life, I'm still closed off to it, which is comical because it's like I experience super positive results from embracing, this idea of just being patient and learning through the process and all that. And then there's certain little categories in my life where it's just like, yeah, but not with that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think it's better to, or it would be incredible to be able to take that and apply it to all areas of your life and practice that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but see, the thing about it is like what you're saying, some of the stuff you're closed off to, and I think expectations are okay in some certain, like an expectation is also like a good like boundary, and I think at the end of the day, like I think my biggest problem is I want to look at the world and love everything that I see about it, right? And if I don't, I want to do something to change that. And so I think, and really at the end of the day, the only thing I can really make sure that I look out and see is like my own reflection. So like I have to be proud of the man I see in the mirror. I have to love myself. And so I think sometimes setting those boundaries on certain things of like, hey, I'm not gonna allow this to, just because I know how it'll affect me if I just let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes my expectations that I have in my head, I'm like, no, I'm rocking with this because at the end of the day, I feel like I deserve this. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as like if it comes to relationships or anything like that, it's like there's certain standards that I'm gonna, if we're gonna consider ourselves friends, like these things got to happen. Mm-hmm. It's non-negotiable because if not, and if it's always just one-sided, then you know what I mean. Like,
give me an example
of just one-sidedness.
Yeah, I mean, as far as those expectations that are set, and that you think's a need for them to be set.
I mean, I think acceptance and reciprocation are definitely two big ones because, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to like everything about me. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be the first one to tell you I can get a hot head and I can pop off. So, if you're somebody who, like, can't understand that, you know what I'm saying, and have thick skin, because at the same time, I can take it too. I mean, there's plenty of people I could think of where we've had like harsh conversations with each other, you know what I'm saying, and like that's a part of it, man. Because especially like if we work together or whatever, like or if you try to take on anything in life, you're not gonna always agree, and if we can't disagree and still be friends or like, whatever or whatever, just be around each other and disagree, then yeah, I mean, that's not something I can drop. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If I feel like I'm being judged every time that I talk to you, I'm probably not gonna continue to pursue that relationship.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like you support the things that I do, or like you really even understand me, I'm probably not gonna pursue that thing. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's like I shouldn't feel weird about who I am. So if you make me feel awkward or whatever, then those are, like I said, those are like things that I have set that it's like, if you make me feel certain types of way, I'm not gonna do it because I'll love you, but like we said, I've had this conversation with you about bluebirds and redbirds are both birds, but bluebirds don't fly with redbirds, and so I'm okay with that to a certain extent. I love my neighbor, but like when you talk about finding your people, then that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. I think, I mean, that's for me. That's just what it is. I've come to realize that there's some people that just love you for what you can do for them, or when they need you, and then other times they care less. And so those kind of people, it's just compartmentalized. I know how to handle you. It's all love for everybody, but I'm not gonna like continuously put myself out there and you can't reciprocate nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care about nothing. You act like I don't exist, then that's fine, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think, but the thing about it is, though, is you always subject yourself to be in the presence of people like that. Then you'll notice your mental and your physical and all that will start to suffer because of it.
Yep.
So I think you have to have expectations and standards for yourself about what I require to be a part of my life, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just also having grace. You know what I mean? Like that could all change. That if I'm talking about somebody, like if they start to change and do stuff different, then I'm all for it. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not holding a grudge, but it's just like I have certain things that I need to consider us to have a friendship relationship. And it's like if that's not there, you know what I mean? Or like then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't feel no ways about having those kind of standards.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense. So how do you think those concepts cross over into the physical?
into the physical. I don't know. I mean, I'm just at the point where like I just want to be healthy. I've like I said, I'm not like the necessarily. If you were to look at my day to day, be like, he eats 100% clean, works out exactly right every day. I'm not that guy. I enjoy my sweets. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I do try to. The inhale, exhale, input, output kind of thing is that's always in my mind. So like, not to say it works out perfectly because it don't. I could definitely stand to lose a few pounds, but like, if I eat a little bit more sweets than I normally would or whatever, I'm gonna try to do a little harder of a workout. So, but at the end of the day, I'm active, I'm ready to go. So if I wasn't able to move and stuff like that, then I would be addressing certain things. And I've even made small changes. I used to drink Bangs nonstop. Now I drink Jocko's just because it's definitely a better change up. So I'm always like the information, looking for the red balloon. I'm always looking for that thing. Little changes over time is what I'm after, and just being consistent with working out. So I do like 3 days a week, 4 days a week sometimes. It's not every day, but it's like I said, if you were to step back, there would be a line going up in that direction. So,
Yep.
That's kind of how my approach is to it. How about you?
So
I know you're a little more more rigid with the discipline. So
yeah, I mean, as far as the physical side, yeah, I mean, I think it's number one. I think for me on the physical side is I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so pushing myself and having those experiences physically, I think it does. I think we're all different, and so I think that my regimen is not a cookie cutter situation where I can sit there and say, Murph, this is what you need to be doing if you want to perform, at a higher level. I don't think that. I think there is a baseline, but I don't think you have to be, I just think my normal routine has a lot of physical activity, more from the side of I enjoy it, which is weird to some people. And then some people are totally connected and they're like, yeah, man, I get you, because I'm doing the same thing, but I think that's, I think you got to find it for yourself. You got to find your rhythm, because I also am a massive believer with physical activity where some people might connect with, like, let's say yoga, for example, versus CrossFit. You got the CrossFit people saying, you need to be doing this. You got the yoga people saying that you need to be doing this. You know what I mean? And so but it doesn't really matter. Like, just whatever you connect with, pick it, no matter what. There should be a consciousness of the diet, and it's more from the perspective of being self-controlled and balanced, just like with everything else that we're talking about mentally and spiritually. Like, eat you a cookie, but make sure when you eat your cookie that you're going to sweat that day. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
You know? But like for me, like there's something inside of my brain that goes, how far can we go? How efficient can we get?
Yeah.
You know? And I enjoy that process, you know, and I think that that's been in me honestly I think it's just from birth, you know, like I've always done that. It's always been a part of my life, you know, as far as pushing the limits with physical activity, you know.
Wrestlers have always been nuts.
Yeah, man. Wrestling is it's such a wonderful sport, you know. It attracts a lot of the you know, those red birds that are just freaking champions.
That's right, dude.
No. But like that sport in specifically, you know, started at super young, and it just opened my mind to where honestly I broke barriers with what I thought I could do. And then it opened me up into another like kind of like atmosphere where it was just like, hold up, like your body can do that? Like that's crazy. Like God made your body to where like you could perform with at a much higher level than you would ever think until you experience it.
Yeah.
You know? And then once I've kind of tasted that, it's been like, all right, let me pursue it hard and see what it is, you know? So for me personally, yeah, it's a big part of my life. I think it's important to have physical activity a part of your life. I don't think it has to be like, I would look at what you're saying, 3 days a week, and your trajectory has been going up since you've recognized that it's an importance. That's a 100% win, you know, without any doubt. And I think it's awesome to see and hear because you're learning and making small adjustments and seeing the results of that on the backside of it and going, okay, let me add a little bit more. Let me do a little bit more. Let me do this. And, you know, and so it's like this, in all areas of aspects of life that we're talking about, mental, spiritual, and physical, like it's the goal is growth, you know, not being the same, you know, because if you're chilling out and you're just the same, then I think you're missing out on the potential of the life experience.
Yeah.
You know? And so if the goal is growth and development for the better, and how I would define better is impacting people in a positive way, impacting others in a positive way. Well, then, you know, question, well, Jeremy, how does physical activity impact others in a positive way? Because it seems like you're just taking care of yourself, right? I view it as my body and the physical has the ability to function more efficiently and effectively, which gives me the ability to be a better father, a better husband, a better boss, a better friend. Just pick a category, you know, because my body's functioning better, which means my mind's functioning better, which means my perspective's probably going to be healthier. So, like, it's all connected, you know. But the same thing is like, okay, if I go hardcore on physical and I eat clean and I work out, you know, but then I'm not opening my mind to different perspectives. I'm not necessarily engaging in reading or listening to other people, you know, then all of a sudden, who cares? You know, like, okay, great, you're in shape, but like you treat everybody like crap, you know? And so then you're missing point, you know? So that's where I feel like this conversation is. The goal of it is for folks listening to hear that, like, look, the cool thing about the human existence is those three aspects are involved with every single one of us. And when you neglect one, the other suffers. Like, it's impossible for that not to happen.
Yeah.
You know? So if you neglect the spiritual, it affects the mental and the physical. If you neglect the physical, it affects the mental and the spiritual. No matter how you spin it, they're all connected, you know? And so to make a conscious effort of saying, hey, how can I identify those 3 areas of my life and set goals toward those? And they can be different goals, in comparison to others, but at the end of the day, you want an upward trajectory of development with all 3 of them. And so that's my encouragement this morning is like, look, first recognize the principle and the truth of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't recognize that, then start spending some time and thinking through it and reading through it and connecting those 3 aspects as far as the reality of those being a part of the human existence, no matter what. And then 2 is just identifying small little goals in those 3 areas that you can that are attainable, that you can look at and say, okay, I feel comfortable that if I put a little time and effort in, I can achieve that goal in that mental, spiritual, and physical categories. You know what I mean? And then see what that experience is on the backside of that. Like once you hit those goals, what do you learn? What do you experience? How do you feel? How are others affected because of those actions? And for me, that's where it's been the inspiration is really taken off. Because as I analyze those 3 areas of my life and me setting goals in those 3 areas of life, how it affects other people in my life, that's where I'm like, okay, I see positive results in other people because of these choices that I'm making. And it's leading them in a positive direction as well. I want more of that. And I want to capitalize on being that type of person to where it's my goal to be the type of person that when I walk into a room or I walk into go to a place with others, that even if they don't know me, the main goal for me is that they recognize like, okay, there's something different about this person. And then I want them to ask the question, what is different? And the first thing that I want them to see in my personal goal is that I believe Jesus is who he says he is, and I want to reflect him as much as possible. After that, what areas are contributing to leading to that? And I think it's a doable thing. I think that it's obtainable to do that. Can I do it with perfection? No. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say stupid things. I'm going to offend somebody, but getting to the point where you're more consistent and positively affecting people, is a goal. And personally, I want to try to inspire or show an example of what it looks like to, follow Jesus. But over the last, let's say, decade, what I've learned and what I've applied, I mean, it's like I really would have to sit down and kind of like, it'd take me some time to be like, okay, these are the lessons I've learned, and how I've applied them, but it's been up to this point, it's been an awesome experience, to have that open mindset of using circumstances throughout the day-to-day as opportunities to practice those values and in those 3 aspects of life.
Yeah, I mean, I think those 3 are very important if you want to have fulfillment, which I think, it's probably the biggest pursuit is I want to be fulfilled, because I think like that's when you can really enjoy your experience, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's when you find fulfillment, and I think you have to be in a good spot with all 3 of those to do that. You know what I mean? And as far as the physical goes, like, man, I just want to be able to run with my kids for as long as I can. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like until they're older, be able to do it with their kids, like that's my whole thing is just I want to stay active to where I can be a part of the fun, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And just ready to go for whatever, I enjoy being strong and feeling good, like just overall in life. So that's I want to at least continue to keep that, going. And like I said, just I think the fulfillment piece is probably the driving factor. Is just I want to be at peace with my time here. I want to be fulfilled with my time here, and I want to do it well. I think life has a lot to offer, and so I want to kind of open my horizons and experience it all and not be closed off. So yeah, I think when you're able to have good health in totality with those three things, I think you're just going to experience life on a different level. You know, and that's what I'm after. Is as far as the mental and stuff goes, it's like, the physical and the mental and all that, like, it's like through hard times, when you make it through hard times physically and you realize you do that, it's like, it makes you feel better about yourself. Confidence builds your self-esteem. Self-esteem keeps the mental up. Yep. So it's like,
and what used to be hard isn't.
Yeah, and then the lessons you learn, it's like it sits well with your soul. So then it's like it all. It's funny because it's like the things that add up to something don't always seem very clear, but it always they do connect. You know what I mean? And so it's like one helps the other, and so it's crazy how sometimes you can think that, like, oh, I can be spiritually 100 and never lift any weights or do anything. It's like, sure, you can be that, but it's like you're gonna be missing a little something if you're not just getting active and to that point. You know what I mean? Like where you feel good. Totally. I think you'll be missing a little bit of the experience. Not to say that you won't have a good experience. I'm just saying you might be missing a little something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fulfillment. I like it. Any other thoughts?
I think my number one thing is just like being gracious with myself, having grace for myself. I think I'm super hard on myself, and a lot of times I can bully my own self into like a bad headspace, and it's just letting go, being patient, enjoying the ride. I think at times in my life I've been very obsessed with where am I going and how I'm gonna get there right now, and I think it drives me insane. So for myself personally, just like taking the time to, hey, I'm gonna live in the day and live in the moment, of not like with no regard to tomorrow, but I'm saying I want to exist in the moment and really just enjoy it for what it is, you know what I'm saying? And not be so concerned with foresight to the point where I'm having anxiety and stuff like that or stressing myself out. So I think, yeah, if I was going to take away, all three of those are important. I think you should do something to contribute to the health of all three of those. And you do that by actually doing something, not just thinking about doing it or wanting to do it, but actually doing it. And then 3 is be gracious with yourself, be real. Don't have these crazy high expectations. Take things and take a true account for what's going on. And then, 3rd would be gracious with yourself.
Yeah.
Allow yourself grace and time to grow. Yeah.
I like it.
What about you?
I just second what you said, it circles back to the patience piece, and so I think patience is a big part of just being humble and making sure you're in a consistent posture of learning. Yeah. Because when you cross that line and you think you got it pretty much figured out and you can come up with a solution with any circumstance, that's a dangerous spot, because at the end of the day, humans have been existing for a while. There's been a lot of different circumstances that play out, and I've only been here 39 years.
Right.
So how could I ever have the capability of having every single answer to every single thing.
Yeah.
You know, like it's impossible. You know, so relaxing and saying, you know, I'm a parent of 3 children, and they're all still kids. So verdict ain't out yet on how I did with
Right.
raising any children, you know. So just because I have thoughts and processes in place of how I think things should be done doesn't necessarily mean that they're right.
Yeah.
And recognizing that and having an open mind to be like, okay, I see this result. It's indifferent to what I value. I need to make a change, rather than stepping into it and saying, like, there ain't nothing wrong with my behavior. Like, you know, this has got to happen, you know, and having that open mind and having that patience is a big piece of what I think I've been called to.
Yeah. So humbleness, patience, grace. Yeah.
A posture of learning.
Yeah. That's it. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man. As always, y'all can reach out to us at Masculine Revolution on Facebook, or masculinerevolution@gmail.com if you want to send us an email with some thoughts or comments. Until next time.
Join the family.